The Jougan could be the door to the endless divine possibilities in the world of Boruto, and the countdown to its manga debut has already started with the recent deal with the devil between the OTSUTSUKI and the vessel. Momoshiki, after taking over Boruto's body again, would awaken the byakugan in the right eye, just like in part 1. But if you think about it, there must come a point in the story where the byakugan's sclera would change to black, similar to what was shown in the OTSUTSUKI God panel. And if that doesn't happen, by or before the flash forward fight, then it would be clear that the Jougan was never meant to exist in the manga. But that's not going to be the case here, cause chapter 25 has already foreshadowed an anchor that would help Boruto get over the idea of sacrificing himself, which is love. The protagonist right now is going through a pretty difficult phase, which would also come to pass as confirmed in the first chapter. But between this future battle of the brothers and the current events of the story, there lies a mystery period which would not only awaken the most anticipated pure eye, but would also dilute the mind of Kawaki, transforming him into the next major villain. So in order to understand the Jougan's awakening, we will be taking reference from the phases of the moon, cause the dojutsu seems to have been derived from the celestial body. There are 5 stages of the moon that correspond to Boruto's life, and he's currently at stage 4, with the next stage awakening the power of the Jougan. Before I move on to explaining why it makes so much sense, let's explore why the moon is the vital element in Boruto's divine journey of unlocking the pure eye. So you all must be familiar with the association between the Jougan and Shibai OTSUTSUKI, with most people believing it's the eye of the god that Boruto was blessed with for some greater purpose. It remained a hypothesis for a long time, but with the new discoveries that I made about the moon and its cycles connecting to Boruto's life, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. Out of all the cyborgs who were modified with the DNA of Shibai, 2 of them unlocked really broken powers of the omnipotence and reflection, and when you look at their eyes, they are shaped like the crescent and the half moon. And when we connect this with the Jougan, which resembles the full moon, it again indicates that the eye has something to do with Shibai. Amaru, after artificially sourcing his power to amplify his cyborgs, somehow led to their eyes turning lunar. And while Aida's eye has an official name too, Daemon's lunar lens remains a mystery, but there's a good amount of chance that it has its own divine power. It was pointed out by Code too, when he asked the cyborg siblings if they have any more hidden abilities. Daemon is an interesting point of focus here, and I will get back to him in a bit to explain Boruto's Jougan awakening better. But first, there is a big question that I don't see anyone talk about. What is the correlation between Shibai OTSUTSUKI and the moon? The Senringan might have been a coincidence, cause it could have been one of the abilities that he unlocked in his lifetime, and after the DNA of his corpse got recycled, Aida awakened the same power, as simple as that. But when you look at how there are 3 different eyes amped by his powers which look like the moon, this cannot be a coincidence at all, and I think I might have cracked it. When you take the word Shibai, it has one core meaning, which is play or theatrical performance. It refers to stage acting, drama, or a show. But just because acting is about pretending or putting on a performance, the word can also be used figuratively to mean a show, an act, or a deception. For example, if someone is exaggerating emotions or faking something, a Japanese speaker might say "Are wa shibaida," which means that's just an act or that's fake. Now when we compare Shibai and the moon symbolically, we could say that the moon performs a Shibai or a play of deception, cause it always puts on a show of changing forms, when in reality it's always the same. It doesn't actually change the shapes, it's just our perception that shifts. And when we take in account the story of Boruto, Shibai could be performing a greater game through this reality, since he should have the capacity to control or pinch any events with his power of omnipotence. This was pointed out by Jura himself when he said that some higher power may be at work to protect Boruto, terming the event as divine intervention or message from heaven. So based on this interference, what could be the role that he's playing in Boruto's legacy and the Jougan's awakening in the mystery phase? Before we move any forward, I recently discovered something that feels straight out of an anime war arc. Imagine humanity fighting for survival, not just against zombies, but with the actual titans like Godzilla and Kong tearing up the battlefield. Well, that's exactly what's happening in Doomsday Last Survivors, as they have teamed up with the epic new movie, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. This isn't just another mobile survival game, it's an online strategy survival, where you build up your shelter, manage survivors, and hold off the endless waves of zombies. But here is the twist. Now you also get to summon Godzilla and Kong into the fight, and not just as background decorations, as these titans actually fight alongside your troops, crushing enemies and changing the whole battle outcome. You start as the commander leading survivors, building a shelter, gathering resources and recruiting troops. Every choice, like who you ally with, how you build, can mean life or death for your people. What I personally liked about this game, beyond the base building and titan battles, is the decisions that you make along the way. Sometimes you are faced with choices like whether to save a character or sacrifice them, and those choices actually impact how your journey would unfold. So if you want to lead your own survivors with Godzilla and Kong at your side, don't wait and download the Doomsday Last Survivors right now with the link in the description. You can also scan the QR on the screen, which is completely free as well. And let's get back to the video. The connection of Shibai OTSUTSUKI to the destiny of Boruto can also be understood through the awakening of the Jougan. I would like to use the theory of Boruto being the second coming of Shibai that I already discussed in a different video. The only thing with that one was that I didn't explain the role of the Jougan cause I wasn't fully sure. But using the parallel of the moon phases, things seem to make much more sense. So for those who are unaware of that theory, it basically assumes that Shibai left his mortal remains on Earth to play out a greater game. But this time, instead of witnessing the gameplay, he himself became the player in the form of Boruto. This Shibai could even belong to another timeline, and I would recommend you to check out that video after this one for an in-depth explanation. But keeping that aside, when Shibai left his mortal body, the assumption of him transcending to another realm was given by Amado. But the word of Amado cannot be trusted since he wasn't there to witness the events live, and whatever he said about Shibai was just a theory. I know Momoshiki confirmed that Shibai doesn't exist in this dimension anymore, but he never mentioned a higher plane of existence, so where did the essence or spirit of Shibai go? Then we take in account that Akebi died around the same time when Jigen found Amado, with the OTSUTSUKI recently obtaining the remains of Shibai somehow. What if the death of Akebi was influenced by the omnipotence of Shibai, who wanted to pave a way for Boruto, his new avatar, to reach a stature sooner? It could go something like this. Shibai left his remains for Jigen to find, and Akebi died almost simultaneously. It absolutely cannot be a coincidence, not just because Boruto talked about his age when this was mentioned, which is a vital point in the second coming theory, but also due to the fact that Amado, after using the remains of Shibai, indirectly impacted the life of Boruto and made him face all the major events, from getting killed to losing his identity and then training under Koji. If Amado did not exist, Boruto's life wouldn't have went this far, so maybe he was the most vital pawn of Shibai's game. That's why the OTSUTSUKI god sacrificed his daughter in order to make Boruto go through all the challenges. Now here comes the most interesting part. The birth of Boruto, or let's say the rebirth of Shibai, could correspond to the new moon stage in the phases of the moon theory. First off, we have the new moon. It is the lunar phase when the moon is positioned between the earth and the sun, making the side of the moon facing earth appear completely dark and invisible from our perspective. It could be a symbolic reference to Shibai's rebirth, or let's say the fresh birth of Boruto, who's unaware of his past life. It also symbolizes new beginnings, hidden purification, or death before rebirth, which also goes well with this theory. Next up, we have the waxing crescent, which is a lunar phase where a silver of the moon is visible, appearing after the new moon and increasing in illumination before the first quarter. It's associated with intention, growth, and planting seeds, as well as the first shaping of destiny. In case of Boruto, it may refer to how the interference of Momoshiki changed his destiny forever, cause the OTSUTSUKI literally sowed the seeds for Boruto's dark future by giving him the karma, which made him the target of all the other calamities. Then we have the first quarter of the moon, when half of the moon's illuminated side is visible from Earth, making it appear as a half circle. It represents decision-making, challenges, and test of resolve. Some of the myths even connect this phase to the hero's first trial, as both represent halfway point of no return. You have already started and now you cannot go back. Will the hero overcome the first obstacle and keep growing like the waxing towards fullness, or would he falter and retreat? So if you know the story enough, you must have already realized that it's a reference to the omnipotence twist in Boruto's life, a make or break moment where he could have easily lost everything, but somehow he stayed resilient, and that's how he continued his journey. The final two phases of the moon are the most crucial, as they correspond to the current as well as the most awaited point in the story. First we have the waxing gibbous, the moon phase which occurs right after the first quarter and before the full moon. Here the illuminated portion of the moon is more than half and keeps on increasing in size. It's linked to refinement, preparation for full illumination, and mastery nearing completion. It's often associated with anticipation and shaping one's true form, and when you look at how the full moon could refer to the Jougan's awakening, this proves that the current stage in Boruto's life is the one where he's preparing for the ultimate power. Every other phase of his life corresponds perfectly with the phases of the moon, and going by the chronology, he must be living the times before the illumination, which will happen once he awakens the pure eye. A good hint to back this up comes from Daemon, who had asked Boruto to battle him at full power after returning to Konoha. If you think about it, Daemon possesses the power of an OTSUTSUKI god, so no matter what Boruto does, he would still be far weaker than him, and in order for him to actually compete with Daemon, he would need to unlock a godly power himself, which comes from an OTSUTSUKI god, and in this case, it could be the Jougan, with this challenge of Daemon again hinting at its manga debut. So now that we know we are just one stage away from the Jougan's awakening, let's get over a few ways that I believe could potentially lead to this most anticipated event. I think the manga has already foreshadowed how the Jougan would awaken in Boruto's eye, and you won't believe how much sense it makes. It starts with Boruto being ready to die for Konoha that he himself offered in chapter 3, and when you look at how he readily agreed to give the control of his body to Momoshiki, it seems like he was too serious at sacrificing himself for the village. But if you pay some attention, chapter 25 was the same chapter where Sarada confessed her feelings for Boruto and how he makes her life feel worthwhile. On the other hand, Boruto is ready to give up on his life to stop Judah, and he confessed that he doesn't need his body after he succeeds at this mission in the exact same chapter. On top of that, Judah has confirmed love to be an emotion which influences people into awakening great powers. So connecting all these dots, what if just like how Sarada awakened the Mangekyo by thinking about Boruto, Boruto would realize that it's worth living for Sarada, whom he loves, and that's when he would manifest the power of Jougan in his right eye. It would also explain why Sarada and Sumire were immune from omnipotence. It was done to make her realize her true feelings, just so she would confess them to Boruto and make him realize that he should not die so early. And this realization could awaken the Star of Hope, which would stop him from falling into the trap of darkness, which is the possession of Momoshiki. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to subscribe and check out these ones as well, that you would also find interesting, and I will see you next time.